Welcome to the Heart of Giving. As you know, the program emphasizes the importance of nonprofits in the city of Long Beach by bringing them to you so that you have a better understanding of the wonderful things they're doing in our city. Today is really a special day. We have the Interval House. The Interval House started a long time ago and has had such an impact. And joining us, Mary Walton, we're glad to have you with us, one of our leading ladies in town, and Sharon Wee, who is the Director of Programs. So I'm going to let them tell you about this amazing program that really started years and years ago with the Williams family. I knew the father and mother, and Carol is still, the daughter Carol is still with you, isn't she?
She was here before the doors first opened, and she's still here as our executive director.
Okay, Mary, you start and tell us, what is Interval House?
Interval House is a program in the community that's provided for the safety of victims of domestic violence, and also in addition to the safety of the victim and his or her children, we also provide education and awareness to the community and to teenagers and youngsters who are dating age. And we just try to get that information out there, as well as all of the aspects of safety, which include housing and health care and legal assistance, all of those kinds of things Interval House is doing, providing shelter first and foremost so that the family is safe, and then all the other things that the family might need.
And I think that we don't know all of the things that you would have to bring to offer to help them. We understand domestic violence, and we understand that they need shelter, but tell me the other things that you provide for them.
Well, beginning with something as simple as a telephone call. We have a 24-hour crisis line, so that if that individual or someone who knows that individual is concerned about the safety of that family, they can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's number one. And then if someone happens to come into our programs either as a resident in our emergency shelter or as a non-resident in our outreach services, they're going to be provided with the best education we have, best information we have to give that family. In addition to the safety, the counseling for the victim and the children who might be involved, legal assistance, because there's so many legal problems that that are attached to this kind of behavior and this kind of situation. Health care, because the family may have neglected their health care, or there may have been injuries. Counseling and mentoring for youth. Child care, education, making sure that their education continues while they are in shelter. All of these kinds of things happen for that family. And then as they move on, we provide a transitional kind of situation. And then from transitional housing or counseling or help, then we move on to permanent housing for that family and reestablishing them in the community. And all the time that we are doing those services, we're being helped not only by our own staff and volunteers, but by other institutions and situations in the community that will support that family in coming back.
Well, I know you offer all kinds of programs, because I was reading the list of the things that you have on your books right now. And so, Sharon, you can tell us about the programs.
Well, you know, I think the hardest thing for a person that's being abused in their very own homes, where they should feel safe, and when that's not the case, so many victims are afraid to ask for help because they're not sure if that may lead to further abuse from the abuser if they're not able to successfully leave, or a lot of victims are not sure how they'll survive without, perhaps they're financially dependent on the abuser, or the abuser hasn't allowed them to finish schooling or ever get a job, and so they're very dependent on this person that's controlling and has power over them in that regard. And so what we really try to do is we look at each family individually, and they come in as a single person or with children, and we try to look at what type of help do they need to be able to be okay on their own after this. And so, as Mary mentioned, we have emergency shelters for families that literally we get referrals from the police departments when they go out to a domestic violence call and they realize that it's not safe for this mom and the children to be in this home, and the abuser may have led the scene and they're looking for the abuser, and so it's really not okay for them to remain in that home. So we have an emergency shelter where they can stay with us, and we work on all these different crisis issues. We also have transitional housing.
I'm
as
sure
Mary
they're
mentioned.
frightened.
Absolutely, and to be honest, so many families, they leave in the middle of the night and they can't bring many things with them, so they don't have clothing, and sometimes they don't have even their IDs and documents, you know, that they need for their children, and so many things. So when we are working,
And they would be frightened of the person coming to get them.
absolutely, and the most dangerous time for a victim is when they leave, and so many victims try to leave on average, 8 times before they can successfully leave an abusive partner. And so it becomes especially important that they're in a safe place and that it's done in a way that protects the victim and children if they're involved, which is so important. And so we, cover the gamut of linking them up with financial resources. If they're low income and not working, how can they be able to, provide for food and basic needs for themselves and the children? Everything from getting protection through the criminal justice system or the family court system with restraining orders, to make sure that even though it's just a piece of paper, it provides some protection in terms of custody and prevents the abuser from perhaps showing up at school or at the place of work, and certainly the home, so that the victim can still be safe. And everything from counseling, mental health services, from health resources, linking up. So many of the victims have physical injuries that they haven't ever been able to treat because their priority has been to take care of the children and or other ways to try to maintain some calmness in the home as much as possible. So their own physical needs have been the last thing that has been important to them. And so a lot of
and another thing that I think would be a strength is that they see others in the same shape,
Absolutely.
that they absolutely are not alone.
Interval House is unique in that over 95% of our advocates are formerly battered women and graduates of Interval House. And we speak over 70 different languages. And as Long Beach is the most diverse city in the nation, something that we're very proud of, and because of the different cultural diversity, when someone walks through our doors and they see somebody that looks like them and speaks the same language, and practices in the same religion and their faith backgrounds, it's an overwhelming sense of just that you're at home and that you're in a place that's welcoming to you, and that's so important also.
And just give me a figure of the current day, like how many people would you be working with at like today? Counting the people in shelter, and you don't have to talk to them every day, but I mean that you are really protecting.
Well, our 24-hour crisis hotlines, we answer over 10,000 calls a year. So that gives you an idea of how many people are seeking help. And it's a serious issue, although so many people in the community consider it such a private matter that you would keep within the home or within the family. And we need more and more people to be able to recognize that someone may not be able to ask for help or seek safety outside, to be able to recognize that and to offer assistance or to link them up with support becomes so important.
And I've noticed that a lot of the people that you have, I don't know if they're volunteers or on staff, are women that have gone through this themselves.
Absolutely.
And so they can speak the same language and say, I felt the same way, and this is going to change. And
absolutely. They are the inspiring leaders of Interval House tomorrow, and that's why our program is so successful, and that it's been a part of the philosophy. And when Carol Williams and Bill Williams and Mary, when they started opening the doors of Interval House, it was a very intentional part of how Interval House started to engage formerly battered women, our clients, to become the graduates and to become the leaders of Interval House, because their experiences and their expertise and training really helps.
Absolutely. Mary, how long have you been involved with Interval House?
Since day one.
Is that right?
Since day one. I was the original executive director for the first 10 years.
Is that right?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And then I moved away and did some other things, but came back about 10, 12 years ago, came back again. And
Couldn't stay away because you
couldn't
know that-
stay
yeah,
away,
Yeah.
couldn't stay away, and it's just been great to see the growth over the years and the development
Oh,
of
yes.
this project.
Well, just looking at the things and I was reading about the number of programs that you have and the outreach that you have, and the number of years that has had thousands of women involved with this, and probably some men too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's just been a strength in our community. I know that, and as I say, you know, it was a family-run affair at the beginning, but now it has branched out to be universal.
Many families.
Yeah,
Many
is that right?
families,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Well, I thank you so much for being with me. It's just a blessing to hear the things that
Thank
are
you.
happening in our community and the things you're making happen that affect so many of the people that have such needs that I think a lot of people don't pay any attention to, but they should know about it. Well, I thank you so much for being here. This has been such an eye-opener, and for so many years. Thank you very much. And be sure and come back because we have more for you to learn and for me too.